So, hello and welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Richelle DeCuir. I'm a senior learning experience designer with LSU Online and Continuing Education, and I'm honored to serve as your moderator for today's panel, AI, a Rose or a Thorn, Finding the Happy Medium. So, this panel is a part of a continuing series hosted by the LSU Online Faculty Committee, created to foster a thoughtful conversation around teaching and learning in digital spaces. Since generative AI is showing up more and more in our classrooms, whether we're ready for it or not, we need to know how it's shaping the way we design courses, engage students, and think about our academic work. So today's conversation is about finding that balance, how we can thoughtfully use AI to support student learning while still preserving academic integrity, engagement, and meaningful connection in our teaching. We are joined today by a fantastic group of panelists representing a range of disciplines and campuses across the LSU family. They'll be sharing their experiences, some insights, concerns, and practical strategies for using AI thoughtfully in teaching. Before we jump in, just a quick housekeeping note. This session is being recorded for those who couldn't attend live, and we'll also have time at the end for audience Q&A. So feel free to drop in your questions in the chat as we go, and my coworker Hala will be monitoring the chat for any important questions that need to be answered immediately. But with that, let's begin with brief introductions from our panelists. So panelists, could you please introduce yourselves, share your name, your institution, your role, and maybe one way you've explored or engaged with AI in your teaching so far?
Okay, I'll get started. Hi, I'm Jennifer Qian from the School of Education, College of Human Sciences and Education at LSU. I'm the lead of the graduate programs in educational technology. One way I use AI is, okay, I have taught both the technical and pedagogical aspects of AI since 2019.
I'll go next. I'm Jennifer Manning. Glad to be here, Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs at the School of Nursing at Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center. Role in Associate Dean includes many hats ensuring quality of baccalaureate education in nursing. One way that I use AI is in data analysis of my research and identifying themes across qualitative data that I analyze, as well as educating students in the use of AI and their various courses. Thank you.
My name is Wes Ladd. I'm an instructor with LSU Online and the College of Business at LSU. I teach cybersecurity risk management. I also have two separate startups that do things either adjacent to or focused directly on AI. So I work with it in my day-to-day job as well.
Hey everybody, my name is Rafael Romero. I am an instructor in business at the College of Business at LSU of Alexandria. I primarily teach marketing and B-Law courses, and I run a marketing agency in Alexandria called 318 Marketing. And so I use generative AI for both client work and trying to come up and develop engaging, fun, exciting activities for students on campus and trying to replicate the same for our online students.
Thank you all. It's very exciting to have all four of you here. I know you each have some different insights into using AI in your classrooms. So with that, we'll get started. Our first question is, how has generative AI impacted a course you teach, whether it's in design, delivery, or student engagement? I think, Wes, would you like to kick us off? Can you speak to how AI as a productivity tool and instructional aid can assist with course development?
Sure. Rather than course development, I would say more on the student side. I think that it's been really helpful. The course I teach is a graduate level cybersecurity course. Many of the students don't have a background in cybersecurity. So getting up to speed on the subject matter itself is very challenging for the students. And AI actually enables them to work with and synthesize a lot of information that would potentially be candidly above their heads, which allows them to work together collaboratively and really accelerate how quickly they're able to learn the subject.
It is very interesting to see the way that it takes shape with both the students and the faculty. Um, Dr. Qian, can you highlight some of the tools and design strategies you've used across the programs?
So I teach, as I mentioned, I began introducing and exploring AI in education back in 2019 as part of my course, Tech Leadership in Education. At that time, the focus was mostly theoretical, conceptual, addressing concepts like AI, what it is, what it looks like. Uh, my students and we explore the technical affordances and potential impact and how AI could be applied within educational context. Because that course is called Tech Leadership in Education. So the focus is on AI's catalyst role in academic and pedagogical innovation. But everybody knows since the release of ChatGPT 3.5, which is still free in late 2020, the exploration of AI has shifted towards more hands-on, practical engagement. And not only ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, and the most recent Grok and DeepSeek. DeepSeek is pretty unreliable in terms of its performance. Okay, so this change has allowed me to introduce AIs that students could actively use. So students use, right? I introduce them because I'm in this field. I know all those fields. Daily work is to study the affordances of new model, right? To compare ChatGPT's the open model until the most recent 4.5 model. They are so different in performance. So students they use, and so the shift has been from study from the distance to really hands-on. For example, in the instructional design course, I introduced AI enhanced instructional design. Actually, I have an article to be released in December on AI enhanced instructional design in higher education and e-learning industry. And another course is called Emerging Technology and Pedagogy. And definitely AI needs to be a topic there. So one assignment is for students to explore in depth a specific AI program that they can actually use at their workplace in their classroom. They need to explore the technical affordances of that specific AI model and the corresponding instructional benefits. For example, the ChatGPT 4.5, it has very sophisticated reasoning. Okay, so it's different from 3.5, which doesn't show the reasoning steps of that model. So they need to explore a specific AI program based on which they will develop a specific pedagogical application of that AI program, such as using ChatGPT to facilitate the inquiry skills with their students. For example, the Socratic inquiry skill. Yeah, we know we use Socratic questions, 6 type of questions in our classroom every day, right? Otherwise, how do you teach? So they need to learn how to involve AI program to facilitate students increase skills, including critical thinking, problem solving skills.
Yeah, so I use AI in a couple of courses, and I think it's so exciting to be a professor in this era where we're able to recreate, reinvent assignments and design them in a way that speaks to different types of learning abilities from our students. And then we're also able to create art that we were never able to do before in this speed. So it is truly fascinating. So I teach a course called Negotiations. It's your typical scenario-based class where students are expected to engage and to speak and to not speak and to listen and to practice all these skills. So I use ChatGPT to create scenarios for both students as we pair them up. And we have a book. And so I say, for instance, use Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference framework, for example, to do an exercise called mirroring, right? That's big part of his theory is that you, through spoken word, mirror the other side and ask a lot of questions. So I find that ChatGPT is pretty good at this. So anyways, at the end of this negotiation class, students, the comments were that they've never spoken so much before in a class, right? Because again, the exercises were designed in a way to engage them. And I think as you enhance the way that you prompt, and you use these AIs, you're able to fine tune the outcome, the format, exactly how exactly you want it to look like, the language, the energy, the mode, everything that you want to really fully use. And then the last piece is we have an introduction to business class, and we have at a competition called Bark Tank, which resembles Shark Tank. And this is a course for freshman students. Half of the students are not even business majors, but they through AI, they have to build a business plan. They have to create a business name, a logo, a brand kit. They have to fine tune their target audience. They have to figure out a budget. They have to, essentially create a business plan that would only be useful for somebody who is requesting funds from a bank or for just external money, right? And it is fascinating to see what they're able to do. And my policy in that class is you must use AI. There is no way around it. You have to use it. But then they're forced to use their critical thinking skills by localizing the content, right? That's something that AI can't do for them. So it can build a business plan, but it can't really tell you, certain behaviors or patterns of behaviors from the people of Alexandria, and that will entail actual marketing research. And so I think the key is to create a craft assignments that allow them to use it, but also force them to use the theories and the skill sets that we're trying to teach in class.
So thank you for those insights, and building on those thoughts, that kind of brings us nicely to my next question, which is how are you helping students use AI responsibly while also preserving their critical thinking and academic integrity? Raphael, can you share how their responsible AI use is embedded in that project?
I'll be frank with you. I think we're at a point in that I think we need to revisit what academic integrity is, because you see the market rewards people who work together, right? We all love that person that's able to be compassionate with us and listen to us and acknowledge our work, right? And so I think in academia, we've been working on this mindset of individual work and just, like a quiz, for example, right? When you quiz a student, we penalize them for cheating. But in the real world, if I have a question that I don't understand, that I need help, I will do what an academic setting we call cheating, right? And so for me, I've been really intentional to move away from that framework and actually allow students to use whatever resources available to them because they're going to do it anyways, right? And so I think clear instructions is a good way to start by saying, hey, look, this piece of this assignment, go all in, 100% use AI. I don't care if you copy and paste, right? But for this piece, I create certain indicators in my rubrics that make it harder for them to use AI. I think it's finding that balance that it is not an absolute. In that approach, I don't use it in other classes, right? In other classes, you might have if you're doing a writing intensive class, absolutely your approach to AI is going to be completely different. But if you're a creative, so for example, if somebody wants to use a logo and wants to play with the logo, they're not graphic designers. So of course, please use it. No issues, right? But for example, when you're coming up with a budget or a P&L statement, your work is you can't replicate it with AI. It has to be something that you generate on your own. So I'm being very broad with this because I think this is something that we have to be very careful when we talk about, integrity and ethical use of AI, because it's going to depend on what industry, what field. Even in English, for writing, it could be you want to be strict, but for a creative writing, you don't want to be. I mean, it varies from field to field, I think.
And I'll add to that. I appreciate you highlighting a different approach. I couldn't agree more. I teach in the nursing school, and one of the classes is an ethics course. So clearly in that ethics course, we have an opportunity where the students can debate the pros and cons of using AI, and what are the challenges, what are the pitfalls that they can face, and what are the ethical considerations. On the flip side, when I'm in a practice-based course where we're trying to identify trends in a patient's, vital signs, so to speak, in a lab, it is absolutely perfect to use AI to help us. That is a tool that can help us be better providers and identify things that are going wrong with the patient, possibly sooner than the human eye could, with so many data points coming at us in the electronic health record.
Yeah, so I'd like to chime in with one issue regarding the ethical use and critical thinking, right, Richelle? That's a question. And it is indeed one of the most challenging aspects of introducing AI into education. I recently completed a systematic review study, meta-analysis study, which involved 243 articles, pedagogical use of generative AI in education. And the third research question is on the challenges of using AI in education. You know what? One of the key themes is what? Is over-reliance on AI, outsourcing cognitive activity ability to AI. So that's the consistent theme across most of the studies. So because my students, they are in-service teachers, so that's the theme I introduce to my students, how you help your students do not rely on AI. So there are some strategies over there. Okay, so one strategy is, because in my courses, we just explore the strategies to deal with the challenges. They are teachers, right, in K-12. Students, they will use AI anyway. They silently use AI. They use one AI program to create something, use another program called Bleach AI to bleach out AI footprint in the submission. So I told my students, this is a catching up game with your student. They know better than us. So one way we explore is just, okay, in college students, just use it as a starting point in K-12 classroom. And but do not use the AI generated content as the quick answer. The teachers, I encourage use it, just use it, but you need to ask your students to critique the output, because AI can't, even the most advanced AI model like ChatGPT 4.5, it still has a hallucination issue. Yeah, it come up with a fake references. We all know that, right? With free version, there's a lot, but with 4.5, they use a RAG prompting strategy. It still has some misinformation.
Dr. Chen, can you tell us what the RAG strategy is?
Oh, okay. So RAG is a retrieval augmented generation. It is a prompting strategy. Could be both technical and pedagogical. So, when you work with AI, without you knowing, you are using some prompting strategies like, okay, so there are 5 categories. Okay, the first one is unstructured. People just inherit their several years of Googling strategy to work with AI program. Answer this question or just use keywords. So that's called direct prompting or open prompting or a creative prompting. There are 4 strategies under the category of unstructured. Okay, then structured, we know one shot, zero shot, one shot, few shot prompting strategy. It's more like you give AI examples, then you produce what I want. So it's more like you ask AI program to learn from the examples I want, then you produce something that's structured, right? RAG goes beyond those 2 categories of prompting. It goes beyond pre-trained, so it goes out to the web to produce more current and accurate information. So that's a RAG prompting strategy.
The structured sounds a lot like what we do with our learners, giving them the foundation and then hoping that they can create something with it, and then taking it further is that RAG. So that's really interesting that that's how it works with AI as well.
Yeah, RAG is mostly used by prompting engineer, but we are users, right? But it is still good to learn about that strategy.
Very interesting. So taking it to another path, I'm interested in what concerns or risks still make you all cautious about AI use in the classroom. To start us off, I know that Wes had a really good analogy that he shared with us previously, so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are hoping that we're going to have some magic box solution to prevent plagiarism, right? And that there's going to be some sort of tool that you can use that can reliably detect when people use AI for plagiarism. But my background is in cybersecurity, And in cybersecurity, we have this notion of antivirus. And antivirus is on your machine and looking for particular signatures or indicators that something is malicious on your computer, and it'll attempt to quarantine or protect your computer from that particular file or piece of information. And so for maybe 30 years now, since the days of John McAfee, if anybody remembers back in the day. But for like 30 years, there's this sort of arms race between hackers and the people that develop these antivirus signatures. And I think that you're going to see, candidly, I don't even think that the AI plagiarism detectors work even as well as antivirus does. So, and I don't just mean antivirus of today, but contemporaneous to as the threat will evolve, right? Because these models are evolving as well and becoming more human-like in the way that they respond, or harder to distinguish from humans. And as that continues to evolve, it's going to become just even more unrealistic to think that there's some magic solution, because I really do feel like the genie's sort of out of the bottle, so to speak, as far as plagiarism. If somebody isn't right in front of you and they have access to the internet, you should presume that they're using one of these tools in the aid of what they're doing. And to Raphael's point, I'm not sure if it's exactly plagiarism or what we call plagiarism in this new paradigm of working with these tools. I mean, they are intended to enable people. So, there is a real importance in adjusting our pedagogy to account for the fact that these are part of the way that people work now. And it's going to be hard to change that for academic purposes.
And Wes, if I can add to your observation there, I think we're moving into an era of hardware and gadgets that are just going to make it exponentially more difficult for us to monitor these things. So I remember a time where I would go to a class, and if I wanted to record a class, I would have to ask special permission from the professor, right? And it would only be accepted under extreme conditions, right? Now through Plod or a little device or just your phone, Plod summarizes the whole thing, right? So they can fall asleep, right, in class, and then after class, this thing will generate everything in a really, really cool way of doing things. Meta glasses, for example, right? You're able to see something, and with very minimal prompting, it can tell you what you're looking at, and it can analyze, and it can speak to you. So
No,
we're
absolutely.
yeah, go ahead. So quickly, we're moving into that space where we're going to, I think the challenge for us is, how do we stay relevant, and what exactly do we want to teach? We have to be a little bit more intentional, more thoughtful of what the ultimate goal is. Right. And that's an uncomfortable conversation to have, just because, there's so much changes that it almost makes us feel irrelevant at some point. So anyways,
Yeah, now your point on the hardware side is incredibly valid. And I don't think that people are really prepared for how important that's going to be to how things change even from here. Those Meta glasses you referenced are like $300. I mean, most people can afford something at that price point, right? Most of our phones cost more than that. And so the reality is, whenever you have something at that level, that's today with a mainstream company that is perfectly fine with you knowing that that's embedded in the platform. But the building blocks of devices like that have become so cheap and ubiquitous that, I mean, one of my companies right now is actually building a smart hard hat, and using it to analyze what people are doing in the construction industry in real time from a safety and a human health perspective. So that's absolutely the direction I see things headed in as well, both from a business perspective and what we have to be aware of. I mean, the future is sort of here in a crazy way.
And I'm happy to chime in and talk a little bit about how some of these challenges relate to the pre-nursing tracks. So one of the most important skills for our students is to be able to navigate a tremendous wealth of scientific literature to identify some key takeaways based on maybe a course that they're taking on a particular population. AI is a perfect tool where they can help develop that skill and really narrow in on what are the key things they need to consider, say with a heart failure patient, some of the top things or trends, especially, and this will help them fill in their gaps in their skills when they're approaching those patients in the healthcare setting. And so we can use that in our theory courses as well as in our simulation courses, but even in the hospital setting, because as you know, those AI tools are available on apps. The students can even use it in the hospital settings along with the faculty.
Those are really interesting insights. One thing I wanted to kind of emphasize that Raphael had mentioned about the fact that you can record all of your meetings now, or that a student could go in and record and essentially not be there. But I know some of you had a hard time getting in today. So just to let you know, this is being recorded and AI is part of it. So it's transcribing everything. It'll give us a nice little summary. You can absolutely do that with your classes. If you're afraid that someone is absent and they might miss something, just record it. Turn your phone on, put Zoom on and record everything and then upload it to your cloud. Then you can give the students that resource so that if they had an emergency and they couldn't make it, right, that's the only reason they would miss a class is an emergency, then you'd be able to share that with them. But kind of moving on from there, what advice or resources would you offer to a colleague who's just starting to explore AI in their teaching? Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, so mhm. So I think for a colleague just starting to explore AI in their teaching, I would say to start small, to explore like just ChatGPT 3.5. It is very powerful for brainstorming purposes. It is a pretty good tool for brainstorming. Of course, the current AI models, if you upload your rubrics or metrics, you upload students, essay, whatever, even an image, they can analyze according to the rubric. Of course, uploading a students' work to AI program is not allowed, right? But for students, introduce the rubric and share, use AI to write and compare what they come up in writing and what generative AI come up in writing, and compare those two versions. It's a way to help students to enhance, because AI is currently considered the most powerful because it access to all the data sets available, right? Currently, we don't know because OpenAI company never say what databases they have used, right? They got into lawsuit in some way. But anyway, they read more than an individual person's brain. So why not take advantage of that for brainstorming purpose? Yeah, start with brainstorming.
I'm happy to chime in. I remember, with the advent of the large language models and especially Chat GPT, which Jennifer mentioned, that's free. So now it was at everyone's fingertips, and asking myself, how can I learn more about it? How can I start to integrate it into my practice and into teaching, and where do I start? And so I remember that very vividly, and thinking, just dive in, just start trying to use it. And I did. But the one thing I think that helped me the most was to identify a course or a class, something that will take me through various modules. And the big takeaways are it teaches you about prompting. You really need to learn how to properly prompt with AI, but it also introduced me to concepts that I needed to be aware of. And that was biases with AI. What are the downfalls? What are the pitfalls? And so anyone who's looking for trying to just dive into it knows they need to know more about it. I think there's a lot you can learn on your own, but I really benefited from some formal training as well. And to kick me off, I mean, by no means it's the beginning of a journey, because we're all learning along the way, but at least got me to a point where I can integrate it into my daily work, whether it's in teaching, in research, or in my academic leadership role.
I would say, just go to YouTube and filter through the most viewed video that introduces you to LLM models, and use whichever tickles your belly, Copilot, Meta AI, ChatGPT. There's just a plethora. So you could easily be overwhelmed if you try to master all of them. Just get one and get used to it. I used ChatGPT, for example. Like if you download through an Excel sheet, the quiz results, for example, of your entire class. So you have 250 students in a class, and you can put that up there, and it can analyze which question most of the students got wrong, and you could then assess and say, well, am I writing the question in the right way? Is there a pattern here that I need to revisit? And so you can make the quizzes, but you can also analyze the performance of that. Rubrics were mentioned before. Creating a tutor for the classes that have high WDFs. I don't know if I'm going to butcher that concept, Richelle, but the courses that can become a barrier of entry into a field, you can create a GPT specially to handle students' questions. I've used it for ADA compliance. I work with Mitchell. I saw him here. He's joining us as a fantastic reviewer for our GDM process, and we ran through some issues there. I used a podcast, for example, just as additional work for the students to listen to. But then the issue was, how can I get a transcript of this? So using Notebook LM, I was able to get a transcript for that. There were some issues with the instructions on a Word document, not in compliance with ADA. So I uploaded what I had was in non-compliance to ChatGPT and say, hey, do this again in a way that it complies. And it saved the day for me. So when I'm applying for grants or other, big scholarships or things of that nature, I upload the policy, the requirements, and I just have a conversation with it to have more clarity. And so that's been helpful too. I use Napkin AI and Canva and Adobe Firefly to put more graphs in my presentations and things of that sort. I'm in marketing, so I use Artlist AI to generate voiceovers, Zuno to generate jingles, and I would suggest to watch out for Conmigo and their model in elementary school. And I think that's a model that may be replicated into higher education in the future. That may be a way to put a little bit more measures to, enhance that academic integrity that we talked about. So I would just say, write all these things down and maybe start YouTubing one by one, and that may help, hopefully.
So if anyone else was trying to frantically write down some of the tools that they were mentioning, we are recording, so I'll try and compile a list for you and reach back out to our panelists so that we can have that instead of having you kind of pause and re-go. But does anyone else want to jump in before we go to the next topic? All right, so My next question is regarding writing skills in the age of AI. How are you addressing those skills differently due to AI? And do you have any strategies for helping students preserve their voice, their creativity, or even their organization skills? I know, Dr. Chen, you have a great way of doing this.
No, actually, I'm avoiding writing because it's so easy. You give a topic like read this 5 articles and write a summary on digital transformation in higher education. No, I don't do that anymore. I teach the tech leadership in education for many years, and that's a classic writing assignment for my students. Now, no more. Okay. My way around it, video presentation. Okay. Why? Okay. I'll explain. Okay. So this is a specific change I shift from. I'm forced to do that. Okay. Because it is online courses. They are not in the classroom. You have no way around, right? So I think that's a smart strategy currently. Students, what the rationale behind that is, while students they still able to the process of converting the AI generated content to a video production requires some level of brain processing of information, right? So I think it still helps with students learning. They can use a few clicks to come up with a 5 pages excellent discussion on digital transformation in US or in Asia or in Europe. But still, when they present it, they need to come up with a relevant the organization, how to present it, relevant multimedia. You cannot just read through the slides, put the AI generated bullet points on it. No, it's not accepted in these courses. You have to come up with an engaging way for your presentation. So I have very specific rubric for your video presentation. It's definitely not just a PPT presentation. So they use like templates from Canva. I think Raphael mentioned that multimedia product company based in Australia. They did they do a wonderful job in terms of multimedia production. So that's my current solution. But in the future, there should be a way for dealing with writing. Writing is still, because writing is a thinking process. It's not just writing, it's a thinking. It's a thinking process. We still need to, we cannot just delete this significant, important learning task from our courses.
And if I may add, I also include in my rubric when we do presentations, I deduct points for people that they're clearly reading, and so just reinforcing that sort of can they cheat? Maybe, and they will be punished in some way for doing that. So I agree 100%. Although there are already a few tools that are generating our own avatars. And so with a little bit of recording of our voice and our expressions are able to generate a video of us talking. So I could see where in the near future, even presentations will be somewhat of a challenge. But yeah, I think the name of the game is quick and accelerated adaptation of what's happening, and just staying up to date with the trends and adapt your courses as we go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Another thing I'd like to share is, reflection. Reflection is a strategy in education. We use a lot because I always share with my students, people don't learn from experiences, they learn from reflecting on experiences. So this applies to AI enhanced learning environments. Just ask them to reflect on their learning process. I have a colleague, students are forced to use AI, just like somebody said, you are forced to use it for each and every assignment. Then my colleague asked students, but you must show me your prompt. Then reflect on it. I think it's a good way to introduce AI because eventually when they go to workforce, their company, their organization, they all require to use AI. They don't want the entry level to just use several hours to summarize something, the meeting. If somebody does that, no, you don't belong this organization because it doesn't help with the efficiency of an organization, right? So I think it's better to introduce rather than using, to be honest, I don't have a policy for AI using because I can tell if the content is AI generated or no. Yeah, even they use the bleach program to bleach out the AI language, the verb, they change the verb, but still the content, if a professor is the content expert in your field, you can clearly tell if the content is generated by AI or by the student.
So the name of the game is just trying to stay ahead of our students and teaching them an ethical way to use it so that they kind of avoid using it other ways. So thank you guys for your thoughtful responses. We're going to open the floor for some audience questions now. So if you haven't already, please feel free to post your question in the chat and I will read them aloud and direct them to our panelists. So panelists, feel free to jump in if a question speaks to you or your area of interest or experience.
So Richelle, I can kind of highlight a few as we get started. Would that work? Okay. Someone did ask if there are any training workshops for faculty to get a complete AI novice get comfortable with generative AI. I responded in the chat there. I'm not sure if, actually y'all might not be able to see that. So I'll post this response publicly. But we do offer a workshop, kind of an introductory workshop on generative AI, and that workshop recording is available on our website. So this is something, Richelle, I made a note so we can include it in the post-event email. Also, we have a web page dedicated to AI resources. So I highly recommend checking out that website I just posted in the chat. It has a bunch of great resources, also a database of different AI resources that have been kind of curated by members of our team. So I highly recommend checking that out at some point whenever you get a chance after today's session. So one question that I do want to kind of maybe bring up as the first topic is somebody asked, have you encountered any students who have concerns about their data being used for AI training? If so, how do you address those concerns? I'm not sure if this was specific to a specific panelist, but if you do use student data or their activity or their input to train AI, have any concerns from students been posed?
For the AI models, any AI program, there is go to the setting, and you can turn off that model to use whatever question you input, go to the training data. So that's a feature because it's required by the law. They cannot just use the users, whatever data question they upload to train their AI model.
I would caution in that regard. It may be the law. I think that there are unscrupulous AI platform providers and ones that are hosted in other jurisdictions where that may not apply. If and where that doesn't apply, you should be expectant, not even concerned, but expectant that they are using your data in that manner. It is one of the chief ways that they create better models is by detecting where users have positive reactions to the conversations they have with models as a positive indicator that that is the model reacting in a way that the user finds desirable, and that can train a better model over time. So every platform that hosts models has a desire, if not an outright financial incentive, to use your data in that manner. So it's really a question of the how much you trust the company that you're dealing with, more so than is this something that I should think is happening. They're highly incentivized to want to do that. So either you can host your own, or you can pick certain companies that you believe from a jurisdictional perspective are going to be required to follow those laws as applicable.
Yeah, that's great to know. And also, faculty are not supposed to upload anything to any AI program, right? Why? Why are you uploading students' work to AI program? Grammarly, unless the students want to use Grammarly to help check the writing, right? But faculty, we don't upload students' work to check like grammar or style. I don't think so.
I
Great.
think there's the privacy issue is a little bit. I think it's a complex issue. So, for example, if you're an accountant, you're a CPA, and you're dealing with public data, you of course need to be careful with what you're inputting. The private sector operates a little bit different. In accounting in the private sector encourages the use of AI, just because, again, the regulation and are a little bit more flexible in that space. I think as long as you're not putting students' data out there, I don't see the issue, right? So if you have an Excel sheet with the results of a quiz and you don't upload the names of the students, you just, again, you want to find patterns, I think that's fair play. But again, as long as you're not using their personal information and attaching or linking that information back to the student, I don't think it's an issue. But that's my assessment. I don't know if it's field specific, but that would be my take.
Thank you all. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can see that, Raphael, because if you are using a multiple choice quiz and you just want to see where the trends are, you're only uploading, this percentage got this wrong, this percentage got this right. You're not really including any student data. So as long as that's being scrubbed, and you're using it for trends. Paula?
Yeah, thanks, Raphael. You answered one of the other questions about scrubbing quiz data before uploading it into AI. This one's kind of a policy question. So somebody asked, what kind of policies do you think would be most beneficial for courses and for the university in general to navigate AI use effectively? I think at LSU, I believe there's a sample like syllabus statement on effective or appropriate use of AI that faculty can add to their courses and maybe modify as needed. And I assume there might be differences in policies across the institution. So I kind of just want to open that up for discussion for all the panelists, not just policies maybe in general, but also maybe even specific things that you want to point out in the syllabus based on your experiences with your students.
I'll say I don't want to speak on behalf of LSUA, but I think I want to say our approach has been a lot of flexibility. So there are templates out there, and faculty are able to pick whatever way they want to go, but we're not pushing a certain type of way of handling it just because it's so industry specific. So I think flexibility is important, but also as you insert flexibility, you need to explain that just because Professor Romero allows you to use ChatGPT to build a business plan doesn't mean that you can use that for Professor Joe over there that's teaching English, and he may have a different policy. So I think what's important is for the student to know what are the boundaries and what's the scope of the AI used in each individual course. And so we need it up, but the student needs to understand that the rules will have to inevitably change depending on what class they're in. I think that's important because that then allows faculty who their discipline relies heavily on AI. So marketing, for example, it is crucial for us to graduate students who are able to come up with a list of at least, I don't know, 10 AI tools that the industry, the marketplace is using. So flexibility would be, in summary, what I would suggest.
Raphael, your question kind of relates to, and if we have time for this, I know we have just a few minutes left, to another question. You mentioned that balance of AI use on the student side, but this question is more for the faculty side of things. So somebody asked a bit of a philosophical question. How do you counterbalance the use of AI so you as a faculty member can work efficiently but avoid finding yourself in a position where you feel like you're playing the role of an editor of AI-generated content? So kind of finding that balance.
Yeah, it is philosophical, so no answer for that. But I think it's a think of AI not as a how to say that? It's not a shortcut. Don't think of it as a shortcut. Think of it as a very efficient GA or very able, powerful GA. So reconsider the relationship with technology. Probably that would help with strategy. Yeah. But this is really a good question. When we work with technology in the history of edutech, you gain something, you also lose something. That's always the cycle in the history of edutech.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit. I mean, I think that one of the things that I've noticed, and this is in my working experience with AI as well as in my teaching experience with AI, is that for people who are new to a subject, AI can be very almost detrimental, right? If you just let AI feed you everything from the beginning and you don't have sort of a wrestling with the subject moment, then you don't really know the limits of the AI and you become way too trusting of the AI. But I do see a real value for AI in relation to people who already know a subject and want to push their knowledge of a subject farther with AI. I think that that is where AI really shines. To give you an example of in the software development field, I do a lot of software development in my day-to-day job. And as somebody who knows what I'm looking to build in software, I can use AI tools now to build things that are both more ambitious in scope than I would have previously done and be successful in doing that. And simultaneously, I can do that at a much faster rate. So I've had people say that, my output for a single day is representative of a couple of weeks of my output prior to using tools like that. And I find that, at least from a mathematical perspective, that's absolutely true, right? Now, do I understand what I built in the same degree of depth? Candidly, even I don't, right? But I do have a number of telltale signs that I, as a quote unquote expert in software development, can identify and say, well, I have confidence in these aspects of it because I have that software development experience to have confidence in that. But that's really where I think that AI both shines and then on the flip side falls short, and where people err in thinking that, oh, AI is some sort of shortcut that I don't actually have to learn this. Well, no, that's only to your detriment and the detriment of anyone who relies on your knowledge in the future.
These were all some really great insights, and thank you to all of the panelists for really your thoughtful and engaging discussions. I appreciate you all, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. So I hope that this conversation has sparked some ideas and gave you some thought space for ongoing dialogue with each other and maybe reaching out to some of these panelists. So a recording of today's session will be shared soon, and we encourage you to continue this conversation with your colleagues, with your students, with us, and through future faculty development opportunities. But I want everyone to have a great afternoon, and thank you for being part of this important conversation. I wanted to go ahead and stop recording now and make sure that everyone feels free to go on about their day. I know some of you have some important meetings, but I will stay on for a few minutes for anyone that has any questions.